Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take all those sources, pull out the key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, we're diving into something really crucial in the horse world, foal weaning, our mission to really unpack the science behind the stress, figure out the signs, and importantly, look at evidence-based ways to make it better. Healthier, happier horses, right? We've got some fascinating stuff here, some things that might genuinely make you rethink common practices. So let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is weaning for foals, and how does it look different in, say, the wild versus how we usually do it domestically?
Right. So weaning is basically stopping the nursing,
Mhm.
separating the foal from the mare, ending that milk nutrition. But what's really striking and comes through loud and clear in the research is the huge difference between that natural process and what we often do. In the wild, it's gradual. It happens over months, sometimes, even close to a year, maybe longer. They might finish nursing around 9 to 11 months, sometimes later.
Yeah.
And critically, they often stay socially connected with the dam for comfort, for learning,
Yeah.
sometimes up to 3 years.
3 years, wow.
Yeah. But in the industry, we tend to wean much, much earlier,
Mhm.
often between 2 and 6 months old. And it's usually done by physically separating them, quite abruptly. That's a massive shift, not just nutritionally, but psychologically, socially.
Okay, so if it's that different from nature, what are the immediate effects on the foal? It sounds like we're introducing stress right off the bat.
You've hit it exactly. That abrupt change almost always triggers stress reactions, physical or psychological, often both. I mean, pretty much all foals show some level of stress-losing condition, maybe mild stress signs, but things like gastric ulcers are incredibly common if it's sudden and there's no preparation.
Gastric ulcers, yeah, you mentioned those.
It affects, well, basically everything. The nervous system, they get frantic, they call out constantly. The gut, frequent defecation, and yes, those ulcers. Immune system gets compromised. Musculoskeletal, they can injure themselves panicking. Respiratory, higher disease risk. Even their coat and body conditions suffer.
You mentioned gastric ulcers again. I saw a statistic in the sources that just floored me. Can you elaborate on that? Is it really as common as suggested?
It is. The figure often cited is that over 90% of domestic foals develop gastric ulcers within just 2 weeks of weaning.
90% in 2 weeks. That's almost inevitable then.
It's a truly jarring number, isn't it? It just highlights how sensitive that gastrointestinal system is to stress. And it's not just ulcers. Stress hormones mess with the gut microbiome too, the good bacteria. It can let harmful organisms take over. It really is a full body response.
Okay, wow. Given how serious this is, how can people tell? How do we spot a foal that's really stressed during weaning? What are we looking for physiologically and behaviorally?
Well, physiologically, you consistently see a spike in stress hormones, like cortisol. And that can stay elevated for 3 weeks or even more after weaning.
3 weeks.
Yeah. Plus, increased heart rate, weight loss, slowed growth rate,
Mm.
even impacts on bone density have been recorded. And that suppressed immune system makes them vulnerable to infections.
Okay, and the behaviors. This is probably where most people would notice something's wrong first, right? What do stressed foals actually do?
Absolutely. The behaviors are usually the most obvious signs. Lots of vocalization, that
Mm.
constant distressed whinnying, heightened activity, restless running, pacing back and forth along the fence line, which, unfortunately, raises the risk of them hurting themselves. Exhaustion, too.
Right, just running themselves ragged.
Exactly. And they show less play behavior, which is so important for their development. They tend to rest standing up more, rather than lying down fully relaxed.
Not feeling safe enough to lie down.
Precisely. And the distress can even spill over into aggression towards other foals, or developing non-nutritional sucking habits, sucking on fences, buckets, other foals.
What about those behaviors we sometimes see in adult horses, like crib biting or weaving? Is there a link back to weaning?
A very strong link. This is actually one of the most profound findings. Forced early weaning significantly increases the risk of developing these lifelong stress-related behaviors, these stereotypes.
Stereotypes, okay.
Yeah, things like crib biting, wood chewing, wind sucking, weaving in the stall, box walking, repetitive actions with no obvious purpose. And what's really telling is you see these almost exclusively in domestic horses. They're basically absent in wild herds.
So they're not just bad habits.
No, not at all. The evidence strongly points to them being a direct consequence of our artificial management, particularly weaning. They're coping mechanisms for chronic stress, a big welfare red flag. And connecting this to the bigger picture, The effects of that unmanaged stress, they ripple outwards, way beyond the weaning period itself. You can see persistent behavioral issues, changes in personality, making them more stress-sensitive later in life. That impacts trainability, resilience,
Everything, really.
pretty much. Yeah. There's the risk of chronic health problems. Those ulcers might persist. Immune function stays compromised. Ending maternal care early can also hurt their learning ability and social skills as adults. We're even talking potential epigenetic effects.
Epigenetic. So changing how their genes actually work.
Exactly. Yeah. Fundamentally altering gene expression throughout their life. It shapes their temperament, their health, their whole potential. It's like laying down the blueprint for their future during this critical window.
So this isn't just a tough week or two for the foal. We could literally be influencing the kind of horse they become, their lifelong health. That's a heavy responsibility. What makes some foals more likely to struggle? Are there specific risk factors we should know about?
It really comes down to minimizing the number and intensity of stressors. The biggest risk factors are abrupt weaning, that cold turkey approach. Also, weaning too young. Under 3 months is particularly risky, though the consensus leans toward 4 to 6 months as a preferred minimum.
Okay.
And changing their environment at the same time as weaning is another major stressor. Genetics play a part too. Some breeds seem naturally more excitable or prone to separation anxiety. Egyptian Arabians, thoroughbreds are often mentioned. Even specific bloodlines within breeds. There was even one study suggesting fillies might show more agitated movement than colts, but we probably need more research there.
Interesting. So given all this, what does it mean practically for breeders, owners, anyone caring for mares and foals? How do we use this knowledge to actually make weaning less stressful?
Well, the goal has to shift, doesn't it? It's not just about getting them through it, ensuring survival. It's about optimizing the process.
Yeah.
We need to focus on physical safety, yes, but also social comfort, proper nutrition, providing distractions, and treating any issues like ulcers promptly. It's about setting them up for future success and well-being.
Right, moving beyond just getting it done. So what are the different methods people use, and what does the science say about which ones work best?
Okay, let's compare. You've got abrupt weaning. That's the cold turkey method. Complete separation out of sight, out of earshot, immediately. Now, some people argue the stress is intense but short-lived, but the research consistently shows otherwise. Significantly higher stress hormones for longer periods, increased risk of self-injury from panic, and a very strong link to developing those lifelong stereotypes we talked about. That idea of short-term stress is better really ignores the physiological damage and the long-term behavioral fallout. It's honestly the least recommended approach based on the evidence.
Okay, so abrupt is generally out. What are the alternatives, the gradual approaches?
Exactly. Gradual methods consistently show much better outcomes. One common one is fence line weaning. Here, mare and foal can still see, hear, and smell each other through a sturdy fence, but the foal can't nurse. They keep that sensory contact, that comfort from the dam's presence, which drastically reduces stress.
Makes sense. They're not totally alone.
Right. Then there's progressive or partial separation. This takes more management, but you separate them for short periods each day, gradually increasing the time over, say, 5 to 10 days. This lets both mare and foal adjust slowly, and it helps the mare's milk production decrease naturally. Less stress, less risk of mastitis for the mare too.
More labor-intensive, but sounds gentler.
It is. And then there's what's often considered the gold standard, or close to it, group pasture weaning, sometimes called the disappearing mare method. You have multiple mare-foal pairs in a large pasture. Then you remove mares 1 or 2 at a time over several weeks.
Ah, so the foal isn't left isolated.
Precisely. They're left with their familiar peers. And crucially, you often leave an older, calm babysitter horse, a mare, or gelding with the weanlings. That provides vital social stability and guidance. It minimizes stress hugely because their social structure remains largely intact.
That disappearing mare approach sounds so much more aligned with, well, how things might happen more naturally. Is actual natural weaning, where the foal just stops on its own, ever feasible domestically? What does that tell us?
That's a great point. True natural weaning, where foals stop nursing spontaneously, usually between 9 and 11 months or even later, it provides the ideal benchmark. Why? Because it causes virtually no stress response, 0. And it's linked to a much, much lower risk of stereotypies. This directly challenges the old idea that we have to wean early for nutritional reasons. Foals naturally taper off much later.
So why do we wean so early then?
It often points towards, well, convenience, tradition. Management practices built around human schedules or facility constraints, rather than the foal's biological or psychological needs.
Hmm.
Natural weaning forces us to ask if our common practices are truly necessary or just habit.
Okay, so choosing a gradual method is key. But beyond the specific technique, what are the absolute best practices? The things everyone should be doing to minimize stress. It sounds like it needs a multi-pronged approach.
It absolutely does. It's a whole strategy. First off, pre-weaning preparation. This is critical. Only wean foals that are healthy and thriving. Aim for that 4–6 month age range, though 3 months is the bare minimum. And importantly, get vaccinations done well before weaning. You want their immune system focused on building immunity, not fighting stress and responding to vaccines simultaneously.
Good point. Don't stack the stressors.
Exactly. Also, introduce solid food creep feed really early, ideally within the first couple of weeks of life. The rule of thumb is about 1 pound per month of age per day of a properly formulated foal feed.
Get their digestive system used to it.
Yes, and familiarize them with basic handling, halter breaking, leading, maybe even very brief positive separations for things like grooming. Build that resilience.
Okay, so prep is key. What else?
Nutrition throughout the process is huge. High-quality, foal-specific feed. You need the right balance of protein, essential amino acids like lysine, minerals like calcium and phosphorus for growth. Good quality forage like a mix of alfalfa and grass hay should be the base. And here's an interesting one. Supplementing both the mare and foal with omega-3 fatty acids before and during weaning seems to help reduce the stress response,
Omega-3s. Huh. How does that work?
likely through their anti-inflammatory effects and their role in brain health and stress regulation. It's a promising area. Then, just as vital, environmental and social enrichment. Avoid isolating foals at all costs. That ramps up the stress massively.
Keep them with buddies.
Yes, ideally other foals, mixed age groups, or at least a couple of calm, older horses. Provide a stimulating environment, 2 different surfaces to walk on, maybe some safe plants to browse, straw bedding they can interact with, engage their senses, new safe scents, food puzzle toys, treat balls. Positive reinforcement training gives them cognitive challenges and prevents boredom, which can lead to those abnormal behaviors. Enrichment actively fills the behavioral void.
Makes sense. Keep their minds occupied. What about the mare?
Good question, don't forget her. Gradually cut back her grain rations, starting before weaning, to help slow milk production. Keep a close eye on her udder for signs of mastitis, heat, swelling, pain. But don't milk her out. That just tells her body to make more milk. Let it dry up naturally.
Right. And finally, facility, timing.
Absolutely, facility and timing.
Yeah.
Safety first, double-check all fences, gates, remove any potential hazards in the weaning area. Panic can lead to accidents. And crucially, as we touched on, avoid compounding stressors. Don't schedule weaning right before or after shipping, major vet work, or farrier visits. Give them breathing room between stressful events.
Let them handle one thing at a time.
Yes, timing the separation itself can help too. Doing it early in the morning lets them adjust during daylight, maybe during cooler temperatures. And here's that counterintuitive finding again. One study actually found that separating the stress of moving to a new place from the stress of weaning, doing them at different times, was actually worse for the foals than doing both stressful things simultaneously.
Really? So moving them and weaning them on the same day might be better.
It sounds backwards, but that study suggested it. It really highlights how complex this is and why meticulous planning of the whole transition, location, timing, social group is so essential. Just separating stressors isn't always the best approach. Sometimes a single, well-managed transition period is less impactful overall.
Wow. Okay, that definitely underscores the depth of planning needed. It's so much more than just pulling a foal off its mom. It's a huge developmental event.
It absolutely is. This period is a critical developmental window. It really can shape their long-term temperament, how trainable they are, their overall health and well-being. It means we need that fundamental shift in thinking from just getting through weaning to truly optimizing it for the foal's future. By using these evidence-based strategies, gradual methods, preparation, enrichment, careful timing, we can change weaning from something potentially traumatic into a well-managed phase that sets them up for success.
That makes perfect sense. It's about long-term welfare, not just short-term management. So, a final thought for everyone listening. Whether you have horses or just observe animals, what can this stark difference between natural weaning and our common artificial methods teach us? Maybe about other compromises we make for convenience and how we manage animals, and what hidden costs those compromises might carry for their welfare and their ability to adapt long-term. Something to think about.